Hey guys, for today's video we are going to do a tutorial and overall review of the Colourpop Chasing Rainbows palette. A couple weeks ago I picked up this palette when I purchased my iluvsarahii through my eyes palette. It was one of those deals where if you spent like $50 you would get this palette for free, so I spent the $50 because I really wanted to try it because it had some really cool pops of color in it. So before we jump into everything, I just want to mention that I'm going to have some timestamps in the description box for the tutorial and the swatches of this palette. So here is the Colourpop Chasing Rainbows palette, which retails for $20 on their website and contains 15 eyeshadows. So when you open up the palette, here is a plastic kind of insert. It is an iridescent type of color with some clouds on it. It's super cute. And then here is the palette itself, which is a cardboard palette, which is very standard. And it has this really cool kind of pastel rainbow on the outside with some little stars on it, and it has some bubble text saying Chasing Rainbows. And then here is the back of the palette with the shade names, and I also want to mention that it's very easy to read these as well. When you open up the palette, it does not contain a mirror, and in the inside it has a cute little quote that says, "Keep your head in the clouds." In this palette there are 15 eyeshadows, 6 of which are shimmer, 8 of which are matte, and then there is also this one called Manifesto, which is this bright pink shade, which is a matte eyeshadow with some pink flecks of sparkle in it. Color story wise, you get a nice range of neutral shades in here, as well as some nice pinks. You get a pop of gold, as well as a couple purples, and a couple blues, as well as a matte black. And if you guys would like to see the tutorial portion of this video, just stay tuned on watching. So the first shade I'm going to go into is Wiggles with a medium shadow brush from Real Techniques. And I'm using Wiggles to set my eyeshadow primer today. I'm just doing a light dusting of it. And the next shade I'm going to go into is Woke with a Sigma E35 tapered blending brush. I never show you guys this, but when I dip into an eyeshadow, I only dip with one side of the brush. As you can see, I'm just going to dip in one side. You can see I have pigment on one side, but not the other. So what I'm going to do is put the side with no pigment towards my eyelid, and then when I apply this into my crease, I will only have pigment into my crease, which makes it a lot easier so I don't have anything on my lid. I'm also going to take this shade and round up my outer V a little bit. And then with whatever is left, then I'm just going to blend it upwards. Using that same Sigma brush, I'm going to go into Wishlist, and I'm just going to apply Wishlist into my crease again, just to give us a little bit more definition. I'm also rounding out my outer V with it. So the next shade I'm going to go into out of the palette is Manifesto, which is the hot pink in the palette with a Morphe M507 brush. The shadow appears to be like a matte with some sparkle in it, so my assumption is when I apply it with this fluffy brush that all the sparkle is going to go away and it's just going to apply matte. So we shall see. I'm just going to apply Manifesto into my crease, just to help deepen things up. So after applying this shade into my crease, I definitely lost all the shimmer in it, so I definitely applied more like a matte shade as I expected. And you can kind of see, like, I have like these little random little speckles of like shimmer here and there, but it's definitely not a shimmer shade or as shimmery as it looks in the pan. It definitely knocked all the sparkle off when I applied it. Personally, I am not the biggest fan of matte shadows that have a little bit of shimmer to them or specks of shimmer. Personally, if I'm going to use a matte eyeshadow, I want it to be 100% matte. However, I'm not too sure if they had to add the sparkle in this one to make it a better formula, because I know sometimes with eyeshadows they have to add a little bit of shimmer to make them blend better. And I'm not too sure if that happened with this one or what it is, but personally I'm not the biggest fan of the sparkle in this one. And then to help me blend out Manifested, I'm just going to take whatever is left on my Sigma E35 and really buff out these edges of Manifested. And I'm just doing little circular motions, just to kind of buff it upwards. So the next shade I'm going to go into is Keep Cool with a Luxie 231 small tapered blending brush. And with this shade I'm going to apply it directly into my crease. I'm also going to apply it into my outer V, as well as in my inner corner, since we are going to do a halo style eye. It's really hard to find nice, deep, rich purples, so I'm really hoping that this one blends out really well. As you can see, this shadow applied slightly patchy. You can slightly see it right here in the center of my lid. However, the true test is if it'll blend out, because a lot of these shades, they don't always want to blend out. The purple in the iluvsarahii palette blends out perfectly. However, I have purples of the same shade in other palettes of other brands, and they don't blend out at all. So it's a really hit and miss depending if the shade is going to blend out or not for us. And to blend out Keep Cool, I'm just going to take a little bit of Manifested on a Morphe M507 brush that we used earlier and really buff out these edges lightly. I'm going to apply a little bit more of Keep Cool with that Luxie brush, just because it seems like I'm losing a little bit too much pigmentation for my liking. And then again, I'm going to blend out the edge. So after working with the shadow a little bit and trying to blend it out, I just want to show you guys, but I lost some of the pigmentation I had here in my inner third of my lid. However, it did kind of do like this really weird patchy thing where it got really dark in some spots and then it got a little bit lighter in others. You can kind of see it, like it got a little dark right in here, but it's still pretty light here. And I also lost some of the pigmentation I had here on the bottom portion of my crease. And I still have this pretty harsh line from blending it out. So I mean, it's not like the perfect blend I was looking for, but I can kind of get it to work. It's definitely not my favorite shade that I have tried so far. Definitely not like something I'm really impressed with, because I prefer the purple in the iluvsarahii palette. That one is perfect, and this one just doesn't meet that standard that I had with that shadow. So the next shade I'm going to go into is Bring It with a Real Technique shading brush. So with Bring It, I'm going to pack this on in my outer V, up into where my eye color starts. And I'm also going to pack this in my inner corner on the lid portion. And then I'm going to stop where my eye color stops right here. So you essentially want a gap where your eye color is when you're looking straight on. So with packing this shadow on, it seems like it's a little bit patchy, almost like right here where my eye kind of creases. And to help kind of blend the edges of this Bring It shade, I'm going to take that Luxie 231 with Bring It and Keep Cool. I'm doing little circular motions to try to blend them out. And I'm only doing this over the parts that have the blue. I'm going to take a little bit of Manifesto again and try to blend this out, this outer V. So I just want to show you guys how many problems I'm having blending this out, but I'm going to apply that Keep Cool shade right in my crease, ever so slightly. And then I'm going to take my Sigma brush with no additional pigment, really try to buff this edge out. Then I'm going to take a little bit more of Bring It and add that in the mix. And then I'm going to take that Luxie brush again to try to buff out the edge. As you can see, like I lost pigmentation even on this Bring It shade. Like I don't have a base on either, like I don't have like a concealer or, you know, like a sticky base. I don't know if the shadow needs that. It should, because I have the iluvsarahii palette and I didn't need one. But as you can see, it just doesn't want to blend, and like anywhere I try blending, it like over blends itself anytime I try to. And I normally don't have that problem, and I didn't have that problem with the iluvsarahii palette. That one blended like a dream. I absolutely adore that palette. It is literally like my new favorite. But this, I cannot get it to do what I want. As you can see, it's like, I look like a damn hot mess. And if I tilt my head back, you can see like how bad this blue like didn't want to blend out. I could get the purple to blend, but it lost all its pigmentation, and then like the blue over in here didn't want to mix with the purple, and it gave me like a weird line right in here. Where I am right now with this look, I'm honestly just really upset with this palette. I was really expecting it to work as well as the iluvsarahii Through My Eyes palette, but this one definitely is not doing so. When I tilt my eye, you can see, but the blue and the purple just didn't want to mix that well for me. You can kind of see it got really patchy, especially this blue shade right in here. And the purple even did not want to blend out either, and you can kind of see my inner kind of third of my eye. It's kind of chunky looking right in here. And if you look in the center of my lid, you can kind of see when I was trying to blend out the purple that it got really chunky and I lost some pigmentation over in here. And in my outer V right in here, you can see like the blue and the purple. When I was trying to mix the blue with the purple, I got this like really weird chunky thing, and I lost a lot of the pigmentation as well. One thing that really frustrates me about this palette though is the purple shade in it. It really has a tendency to overblend, and it kind of just overpowers everything. Because when I actually first started this look, I had a lot of like orange and neon pink, and once I added that purple and blended it out, you can tell I got like this muted kind of cranberry shade. It just really overpowers very quickly, and it's also kind of a patchier shade too, which I'm not the biggest fan of. But I don't know, I'm just really frustrated with this palette. Like I just cannot get it to do what I was expecting it to, which is unfortunate because I really love my iluvsarahii palette, so I had expectations for this one to be very similar, but unfortunately it is not. And I just want to keep it real with you guys. I have tried filming this look 3 different times today, and I kept on thinking that it was like things I was doing that were making this palette not work for me. For instance, I thought I was using too big of brushes, or that I wasn't using the right primer and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I have noticed the third time that it is just the formula of the eyeshadows just aren't working to where I would want them to be. With my first run through this palette, I had issues with Keep Cool, the purple in the palette. I thought I was using too big of brushes because it overblended itself to the point that I couldn't even get it to kind of come downwards. So I assumed that maybe I needed to change my brushes. So with my second run of this palette, the first thing I did was use my Tarte Shape Tape Concealer as a base instead of my Too Faced Shadow Insurance, because I assumed maybe that could be a reason as to why I was having issues blending it, is that I was using the wrong base. And I also opted for smaller blending brushes. And again with that, I had issues with Keep Cool overpowering my look when I would try to blend it out. It just would not stay as pigmented as I was hoping it to be, and when I would try to blend it, it would just kind of get really kind of muddy in a way. And with that run, I also used Prism, and I had the exact same issues as I did with Keep Cool. It just did not want to do what I wanted it to, and it was not as pigmented as I was hoping either. It's just not my favorite shade. And with my third run through, I thought maybe it could be because I didn't set my eyeshadow primer the 2 times before. So I set it with Wiggles, assuming that maybe it would help me with my blend, but unfortunately I still had the exact same issues. I decided to take off this eye look, and if you are interested in seeing swatches, I'm going to include them right here for you. Wiggles, Blurred Lines, So Meta, Feeling It, Realness, Woke, Wishlist, Manifested, Keep Cool, Not Playing, Lucid, Bring It, On One, Eclipse, Prism. And with all of that said, I want to give you guys some pros and cons about this palette. So the first pro about this palette that I want to talk to you guys about is the packaging. It is so cute. I love it. I'm going to show you guys the outer casing again, but I just love how it's kind of like an iridescent vibe to it. And I also love the outside packaging design. It's super cute with this pastel rainbow on the front. I love the name of the palette as well, being Chasing Rainbows. It's super cute. The back has the shade names, which is really nice, and they're very easy to read. And when you open it, I really like the little quote too where it says, "Keep your head in the clouds." I think it's just adorable. Another pro to me about this palette is definitely the color story and the mix of mattes and shimmers in here. It would definitely be a one and done palette for you because you get a really nice bone shade for underneath your brow bone. You get an inner corner highlight shade. You get a ton of mattes in here as well as shimmer shades, which is really nice. And you also get a matte black and a matte kind of purpley shade as well as a matte kind of deeper blue shade, which would be really nice for the crease or in the outer V or even to set your eyeliner with. So the first con about this palette is I really don't feel like the vibe matches the colors inside. I know that is just kind of a personal preference thing. It's definitely just my own take on it. But with the packaging being so vibrant and pastel and super kind of girly and all of that, I would have expected the inside to be either pastel or like really bright, vibrant shades, but instead it seems like it's a little bit more deeper in tone, which to me doesn't really match the vibe of clouds and rainbows and stuff like that, but it's definitely a personal preference. And the last con I have about this palette is definitely the formula of the eyeshadows. I have not tried every single shadow in this palette, however, the ones that I just really haven't been enjoying are Wiggles. I don't think it is really that pigmented of a bone shade. However, it is nice that it is included. I really do appreciate it, but I think it could have been more pigmented. I also am not the biggest fan of Keep Cool. I had a lot of issues blending that one out. It definitely is not my favorite shade in the palette. And I also had a lot of issues with Prism in this palette. And I'm also not a big fan of Bring It. I had a lot of issues with this one blending out as well. After using the Chasing Rainbows palette from Colourpop a few times today, I unfortunately do not recommend it to you guys. I do want to try this palette out a couple more times with other palettes of mine to see if I can get it to work a little bit better and to see how the shimmer shades perform, but at this time I really am just not wowed by it, and it's definitely not my favorite Colourpop palette that I have tried. Though the Colourpop Chasing Rainbows palette did not work out for me, I'm going to include some recommendations that I do have from Colourpop for their pressed eyeshadow palettes. The first palette that I would recommend is the iluvsarahii Through My Eyes palette. I will include my review down in the description box for you if you are interested in it. However, this palette is amazing, especially if you want some pops of color as well as some neutral shades. Another palette that I would recommend to you guys is the Yes Please palette. If you are somebody that likes warm, smoky eyes, you will love this palette. And I also really like how this palette has a nice yellow mustardy shade in here, as well as a oxblood red. It's a super cool kind of color story, and if you are somebody that likes those warm, smoky eyes, you will love it. With all of that said, let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on the Chasing Rainbows palette by Colourpop, as well as let me know your favorite Colourpop product. As always, I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below, and if you would like to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram account is @lethal_kitten. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and until next time.